Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Miami Hurricanes Talk with Danny, presented uh, by Spotify. If you're on YouTube, please send a like and subscribe. Helps the channel out tremendously. Join Canes Connection today, canesconnection.com. I'll put all the links in the description. My guest this week is Samantha Croston. She is the current sports director at CNY Central in New York, up in Syracuse. She's a podcast host for the Orange Zone. Also, why I'm a Mets fan. For you Met fans out there, I understand that you were a weekend news anchor and a multimedia journalist, right?
That's right. Got my start here in news. Took over as the sports director a little bit over a year ago.
Wow, quite a rise. We went over a lot of the things last year, the background a little bit. So, like I said, time is short. We're going to go right to it. By the way, last week, North Carolina, very bad game all around. Joseph Filardi, 4 of 18, 39 yards, 7 carries for 8 yards, and he lost a fumble. Tell us about what happened last week against Carolina.
Yeah, well, I think you said the number that really matters there. 39 yards. It's crazy, the kinds of things we've been discussing. Listen, I could sit here and tell you some of the X's and O's, but I think the overarching piece here, if you're a Miami fan, you have to understand that Syracuse is just in all kinds of trouble this year. And it all starts at that quarterback position. It is question mark after question mark after Steve Angeli went down. They tried Ricky Collins for a couple games. Quite honestly, he wasn't very good and he didn't improve. He had 5 weeks, including the bye week, to prove himself, and he wasn't able to. So ultimately, to answer your question, what happened against UNC is they were trying their fourth option of the year after LSU transfer, Ricky Collins and freshman Luke Carney. They went to Joe Filardi, who, interestingly enough, was actually recruited here to play lacrosse. He's a very good lacrosse player.
Yes.
But again, this guy is a walk-on freshman. I just don't think that he was ultimately set up for success. He wasn't ready to be out there, for an institution like Syracuse. And he got torched, and I totally see why it happened. I just think he was underprepared, and Syracuse was trying to throw anything at the wall and see if it stuck. Despite what the score may show, I actually think that the defense continues to show that they actually have some good pieces, but this offense just consistently goes out there and gets 3 and out after 3 and out. It's really defeating to watch.
Yeah, 147 yards last week, 12 first downs, 2.9 yards per play, 3 for 12 on third downs, 50 total plays, only had the ball 24 minutes and 31 seconds. You're not going to beat anybody that way. Come on.
It's as bad as it gets. I really was thinking about it earlier today, and it dawned on me that if they lose out, which right now you couldn't convince me to bet $10 that they'll win another game the rest of the season, that will mean that in Fran Brown's second year, they went 3-9 after a year ago going 10-3. Legitimately, the amount of losses they had last year is going to be the amount of wins they have this year if they don't win another game. And quite honestly, with the schedule they have remaining, it feels like the only winnable game is Boston College. Wow. I don't envision this team as an upset team. I don't even envision this team as a team that comes out on top with someone who they are equal to. So much is up in the air, and it just seems like everyone is kind of ultimately flailing around at this point. You just can't have a good team that's productive offensively if you don't have a good quarterback. And I think Fran Brown found out the hard way this year that in an age where NIL really matters, in an age where everyone is pouring money into college football, you just have to have a backup quarterback that is good enough to take you the rest of the way if your starting quarterback goes down.
Yeah, maybe with Fran's got to do this off season. I think number one, he's got to get, and there's only one window this year. So he's got to hit mark after mark to be sure.
I think that's a really great point because, people were talking about the fact that this week in the press conference, Fran Brown mentioned a couple things that I thought were interesting as far as the quarterback position. He said that Luke Carney, their freshman, plans on redshirting, which means that he only has one more game that he's able to play in because he's already played in 3 games. Mm-hmm. He also said, so that what I mean by that is next week, really, you're only going to either see Collins again or Filardi. I don't think they're going to put Filardi, the walk-on freshman, back in over Collins. I really don't. I don't think Collins is a good option, but I am convinced it's the best option they have, which is what Fran Brown told us all along. Fans tended to not believe that. I think now that you've seen the truth revealed, you know that he was actually true, or he was actually right in saying that, I should say. That being said, I think we were a little bit misled because in the beginning of the year, he was kind of making it out to be that this was really a battle and that it was, up until the last minute that he was able to find out that Steve Angeli was better than Ricky Collins and that it was neck and neck. This was not neck and neck. Let's be fair, right? Like these are two totally different quarterbacks. But what I was going to say initially is he also said this week that Steve Angeli is going to come back next year and that he's going to be their starting quarterback. All I'm saying is if I'm Fran Brown, I'm not going in there and just getting a solid backup for Steve Angeli. I'm going in there and trying to find someone who really can compete with Steve Angeli, if not be better than him. There is nothing that says that Steve Angeli will actually be back and ready in time for next season with the torn Achilles, right? There's so much that can happen in that recovery process. There's nothing that says that Steve Angeli is going to be the same quarterback or better than the quarterback that he was. I hope for that, but hope's not a strategy, right? You need a strategy here.
Not. No, the thing is now that you talk about Filardi, Collins going into a tough road game against the Canes team that's coming off an embarrassing loss against SMU, and the fan base on here has really gotten on Mario Cristobal here for being too conservative, not being able to run the football. Pretty predictable now. This has been the same song and dance that's been down here for the last couple years. Now, preparing for a tough road game, needless to say, I'm going to start with the defense first. How is that Syracuse offense preparing for a physical Miami defense? And how is Dale Williams preparing their offensive tackles to take on Bain and Mesidor?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that the Syracuse offense is going to be in for quite the ride here. Quite the ride. I mean, we talked about it on our podcast a few days ago, like, oh, brother, like this is not even going to be safe for whichever quarterback is out there, quite honestly. I mean, listen, I totally understand if the Miami fan base is feeling a little bit upset at the moment. Yeah. But what I can damn near promise you is that if you are a Miami fan, you are in for a bounce back victory right now.
Oh, yeah. Considering after what happened last year, costing Miami a playoff berth.
Well, and that's the part that I think makes me feel even more nervous beyond the fact that top to bottom, Miami is just far more talented of a team than Syracuse this year.
Yeah.
They also have that motivation piece. They're thinking about what happened last year in the Dome, thinking we're going to come out and embarrass this team. I am so serious. I would not be surprised if this Miami team put up a 50 spot. I said, I meant this sincerely. I really thought that it would be nice to say that the final score of this game would be Miami 42, Syracuse 10. I'm telling you, I mean, listen, of course, every week, Fran Brown finds different ways to prepare. I think if you're a Miami fan, what you can expect from this offense is they're going to try and simplify it as much as possible. Yeah. So you can feel confident knowing that Syracuse does not trust any of their quarterbacks to throw the ball realistically more than 20 yards. So it's going to be a lot of, how does their run game fare? How are, some of these shorter routes doing? And God forbid that Syracuse gets into a situation where it's 3rd and 25. It's like, forget about it. Like they truly don't trust these quarterbacks to throw the ball because honestly, like Ricky Collins, to be fair, has a great arm in the sense that he really can throw the ball downfield, but you just never know who's going to catch it, right? So if there's a situation where he really has to throw the ball downfield, I don't know if they're going to be trying some wacky things just because they have nothing to lose at this point. So I guess there is the possibility that you could see some trick plays and you could see Fran Brown throwing a lot of things out there just because he wants to try and win. But I think that if you're Miami, you have to be relying on, your safeties and your corners. Yes. Anyone who can go up there and grab a 50-50 ball, practice that because there is a very real chance that you can grab a couple interceptions here.
And knowing we're not going to have CJ Daniels in this game for Miami, how is the Syracuse corner, Samuel Jr., Peel, and Buxton III preparing to deal with guys like Malachi Tony and the rest of our receiving corps, knowing we're not going to have CJ Daniels in this game?
I mean, yeah, I think that Tony is dynamite, not to mention dynamic, right? Like this is the kind of guy that is going to be a problem. in Demetrius Samuel Jr.'s defense, like I told you earlier, I think that this defense has to be given a little bit more credit than the numbers might show. Because again, this is a defense that is going out there time after time, really getting no help from their offense. And on the podcast earlier this week, we were talking about the fact that that's got to feel a little bit defeating, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like if you're going out there and you're making big stops, even in the UNC game, for example, they turned defense into offense, right? They were able to grab points from the defense, I should say. To put out that kind of effort and energy and then get rewarded with a 3 and out time and time again is very defeating.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand why this defense might just feel a little bit deflated at this point. But to be honest, I would trust the defense to go out there and, give some of these guys on Miami who are in skill positions a hard time.
Yeah.
I honestly think that the coverage from the corners has been a strength of the team this year. I actually feel like they do a pretty good job at their coverage as far as that's concerned. I think that it's tough at times. And I know that you guys have Carson Beck and he's fantastic, but I think that there are times where it's difficult for quarterbacks to really throw the ball downfield here, just based on the coverage that Syracuse has. It's frankly a lot of young guys and it's some new faces, and they rely on both sides on a lot of, sophomore pieces, couple of freshmen, as you've seen. Demetrius Samuel Jr., who you just mentioned, is like 17 years old, I believe, maybe 18 at this point. He's one of the youngest players in all of college football. But sincerely, whereas the offense does not really improve week to week because they're just frankly at this point making too many changes, the defense is actually improving week to week. I wouldn't go as far as to say that.
I think defense is going to decide this game, to be quite honest, because people have gotten on Carson Beck for the interceptions. I think he's been forcing the passes forcing it too much. But I really think it's going to be how does that defense deal with a physical running game, knowing that Mark Fletcher will be a game time decision, and you have to deal with Lyle and Brown and maybe Chris Wheatley and maybe Rob and Pringle. How are they going to deal with that running game and that physical offensive line?
Right. I mean, I will say that I feel like as far as the running game, that's probably a place where the Syracuse defense would struggle a little bit more. As far as the why behind that, I feel that a part of it is simply because the defense, if you're really watching these games, is just out on the field so much, I don't think that they're getting enough rest time. And that's how a cycle like this continues to repeat and at times get worse. Think about it. It's like that. It's just that kind of thing where you have that mental component, understanding that these guys are tired and frankly a little frustrated. You know what I mean? I do think that Fran Brown still has the room together. I do think that Fran Brown still has the support of this entire team. He has not by any means lost the support of the community, but it's a down year. Everybody knows that. They're trying to figure a few things out. And I think the patience for this defense only lasts so long. I think they're getting a little bit frustrated at what they're seeing. But that being said, I think that there are times where there have been opponents whose ground game has frankly outmatched what Syracuse's defense is able to provide. So I would say if you're Syracuse, you are doing anything that you can to try and contain these runs to 5 yards or less. And the only other piece of advice I would give if I was a Syracuse head coach right now is be aggressive, right? You just talked about Carson Beck. You say that some of the fan base is mad because of some of the inconsistencies or interceptions or whatnot. If you're the Syracuse defense, why not do everything that you can do to cause them turnovers? Why not put some pressure on Carson Beck, right? Nobody expects Syracuse to win this game. Not a single person, not Vegas, not the fans here, not you. So if that's the case, why not go out there and be bold? Why not go out there and put pressure? Why not go out there and change some things up, right? You have 3 games left. If you don't win all 3 games, which you won't, but you know what I mean? 3 games left. I guess realistically, you do still have a chance to make a bowl game if you pulled off 2 unbelievable upsets and one against Boston College. So why not just try everything that you possibly can to get a win?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, single most important factor for Syracuse to win this game, to pull the upset.
Belief. Honestly, there has to be some belief for this team that they can actually do it. I think right now, there's probably very few members of that Syracuse football team who actually believe that they can pull this off, whoever comes out there at the quarterback position, and I almost hope it's Ricky Collins, whoever comes out to that position at quarterback and starts for the Syracuse team has to bring leadership that we just haven't seen since Steve Angeli. There are other sports, and this is something we talked about on the podcast this week, like a baseball, for instance, where you can have a captain at ultimately any position, right? And you see across 30 Major League Baseball teams that there are different leaders. Sometimes it's a catcher who's a leader. Sometimes a pitcher steps up. In the case of the Mets, they really like their shortstop as the guy. But I think when you're thinking about a sport like football, your quarterback has to be a leader because that's who you're taking all of your commands from. That is just how it goes. You have the coach and then you have the quarterback, right?
Yes.
So if you have a quarterback out there who's a freshman who seems unsure of himself, then everyone else is going to feel unsure of that too. And I think the Miami defense is smart enough and well-conditioned enough to capitalize on that.
And
you
Corey
need a quarterback who comes out there as a leader.
And Corey Hederman is going to have this defense ready to play. I'll get you on two things. Do you have a gut feeling on how this will shake out and what's your reasoning?
Yeah, I completely feel like I have a gut feeling on how this will shake out. Honestly, I don't bet on things that I haven't seen yet. I don't bet in things that I don't believe. This team has not given me a reason to believe that anything will be different from the previous game. Honestly, even last year when you and I were on here talking, I felt nervous even then about Syracuse's chances to go up against Miami and beat them. But when you had Kyle McCord as the quarterback of Syracuse last year, and thank God he didn't get hurt, because it does make you wonder now how the season would have went, right, if he got hurt. But because he didn't, and he was so talented, and they had 11 guys last year go to the NFL, they always had a chance. They always had a chance to win. This time around, they just don't have that. Everybody knew it was going to be a rebuilding year. Everybody knew that the schedule was harder this year, significantly than last year. But without a quarterback that you can trust, you just don't have anything. I think this is going to be a 42-10 Miami win.
I think the same thing, Samantha. I think the Canes are angry. The Canes have been put down this week by our own fan base in South Florida, thinking there's no belief that they'll win out. I think this team wants payback for last year, not missing the playoff a year ago. I think Canes will come. I'm thinking the same. I'm going 42-10. I may even go 45-10 Canes. I think this team's going to come out angry, and this team's going to take their frustrations out on Syracuse. Samantha, best way for your listeners to connect with you or follow your work, and what's your final thoughts you want to leave our audience with?
I really appreciate you saying that. My Twitter is @SamCroston1, and beyond that, if there are any baseball fans here, not just Mets fans, but if you happen to like baseball at all, the best thing we're working on at the station right now is our podcast called Why Am I a Mets Fan? It's on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we just recently hit our first episode that got 100,000 views. So anything that you guys can do to help out, we'd really appreciate that.
Okay. Anytime. Samantha, thank you so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. I don't know if you're making the trip to South Florida Saturday.
Unfortunately, my station just does not have the money for that, nor the will, but I'll be watching on TV.
Yeah, I will too. So take care. Safe. We'll talk again down the road.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.